Welcome back to Collaboration Conversations. I'm your co host, Regina Partain Bergman. And as many of you know, my co host, Pearl Cox, is unable to be with us right now. So we have the delightful pleasure of having guest co hosts while Pearl is out. It's been so much fun. I'm sure we're going to continue that even when she comes back because it's just been delightful to have these co hosts and have them bring a panel of folks with us to enhance the conversation. So today we have a returning guest co-host. I'm happy to have with me today Eric Yaillen of Megafluence. And Eric is doing so many things. I'm going to let him tell you more about that. But I would like you, Eric, to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing and who you serve and why.
Well, I have been playing in the marketing communications game since high school. That dates back to the mid 1970s. Um, Eventually, and by the way, I kind of followed in my mother's footsteps. She was a freelance copywriter.
Uh-huh.
My father was a microbiologist, and science just wasn't my thing. Um, though in a way you can kind of say what I'm doing now kind of blends the two. Eventually, I went to college, and I always took on all sorts of opportunities to learn all the different facets of marketing communication, whether it was in political science, working as a press secretary for the lieutenant governor of Iowa, or working in news media, or all sorts of different things. Eventually, I landed a job with ABC News in Washington, D.C. Decided that wasn't where I wanted to be, even though that's kind of like the center of the universe when it comes to news. Got a job in as a regional marketing director for Feld Entertainment, which is at the time was Ringling Brothers Circus and Disney on Ice. And early on, in fact, even before I took that job, I got into computers. Got my very first computer in 1984. When I was with Feld Entertainment, I was one of only 40 regional marketing directors, and I was the only one that was computerized. And I quickly saw the value of computers. Eventually, I left that, went to work for a small software company, helped develop the very first CRM system in DOS for the PGA of America, and that was in 1991. Started my own software company, created the first Windows-based club management system for upscale health and fitness clubs and corporate fitness centers. Did that until 2003, decided I had enough of the software game, went back into golf in a nonprofit, but still I came across businesses, especially in nonprofits, that they just weren't organized when it came to all of their data. And interestingly, things haven't really changed in all of those years. When I went to work for the Oregon Golf Association, they had 7 employees working off of 7 different databases, and they weren't talking to one another. So literally, they could have 7 different names and phone numbers as the golf pro at a particular golf course. So I helped create at least a peer-to-peer access database for them, and eventually said, they really should move to a CRM system, but they weren't willing to invest in that. Got the United States Golf Association to do that on behalf of all state and regional golf associations. Then in 2014, I got sick and dropped off the workforce completely. Only recently was I able to come back, and I started out first as a consultant for a software development project for 2 of the top digital marketers in the world, a guy named Chad Nicely and Perry Belcher. And Perry Belcher is known as the godfather of digital marketing. And worked with them until April of last year, and then decided what I was doing with them really wasn't where my passions were, and really wanted to pursue that more. So I decided, again, based on all of my years of experience, being a business coach was where I was most well suited, because I had a really solid background in all of those areas that I thought were essential for a business to succeed. So I kind of created this concept called the Megafluence method, and it's a 4-part framework for any business to be a market leader in their niche. And the 4 stages or 4 parts of that framework are having the right foundation, which is essentially your brand and brand strategy, then knowing who your customer is and how to
Hmm.
communicate with them. That's great if you're just one-on-one, but if you ultimately want to grow and scale, you have to develop SOPs, standard operating procedures, so that whatever it is you're doing as a solopreneur, you can easily bring a new person on board and say, here, do this way. You got to have something standardized, but all of that can be done in a business in the 1800s. But obviously we're computerized today, and if you want to grow and scale, you have to use technology. But what I find is, to this day, and it really doesn't matter how old the entrepreneur is, it doesn't matter if they're in their 20s, 30s, 60s, 70s, technology is the sticking point.
Yeah.
And because it can be so confusing and so complex, it's easy for people to be caught up on emotion and pick the wrong systems, spend way too much money, and then get just more and more frustrated as time goes on. So that became my focus. And I kind of pivoted from writing a book. It's still only maybe a little more than halfway done. And I started coaching. And then I pivoted a little bit more again and decided to become more of a digital agency because I saw where all of the holes were with the type of audience that I was working with, which is primarily, small business entrepreneurs and a lot of people who are coaches, whether they're life coaches, business coaches, um, marketers, um, all of those little areas. And so I kind of pivoted, and I'm kind of working now toward being more of a digital agency. Uh, and
Awesome.
and part of the people that I work with are, or I try to target, are some of these big name influencers who have loyal followings of millions and millions of people who want to change from being an employee to being a business or an entrepreneur, and again, maybe being a coach. So that kind of brings me to where we are today, and knowing full well that I can only do so much by myself. And so to do it successfully, got to find collaborations.
Right. Right.
That's where
Collaborations
we
the
are
name
today.
of the game. And you have definitely demonstrated collaboration throughout your career, it would sound like, or it would seem.
Always, it sometimes it's just knowing what you don't know and reaching out. I mean, I remember even with the deal with the PGA of America, the company that I worked for, the the PGA wanted to get a source code license of the software for the company that I was working with, and the owner of the company didn't want to spend a penny on a lawyer. He said, "Oh, you go figure it out." It's like, okay, but we're dealing with intellectual property law, and I'm not a lawyer. And I and it was really funny because his brother was a former U.S. attorney, so
Oh,
I don't know
gee.
what his problem was with attorneys. He said, "I'll give you $500. Go find out what you can and negotiate the deal." And so I found somebody, did a little bit of a collaboration, I guess, with them, absorbed the knowledge, and negotiated the deal with the PGA. And when that relationship with those two organizations kind of soured, it turned out I had written a really good contract.
Excellent. Well, Eric, thank you for being our guest co-host today. Would you introduce our guest for us?
Well, I'd like you to meet Ann Landstrom, who is a phenomenal photographer. She has her studios in the San Diego area, but is very much a celebrity photographer, having taken photos of some big influencers like Les Brown and Forbes Riley and John Lee and Lisa Nichols and many others. And she definitely understands how to position people correctly, not only in a photo, but for their brand.
Mm,
Now, I got to meet Anne actually through two different communities that we share. She's part of John Lee's community, and she's part of Forbes Riley's community. And basically, at one point, we finally met and learned about what her struggles were as a small business person. And now we're collaborating on a variety of different things, working with her on developing some of the things that she wants to do based on her vision of the future and some of the brands that she's looking to create. And it's really exciting. And I don't want to share any of that because that's what Anne should be doing.
Well, thank you, Eric, for that introduction, and thank you, Regina, for having me here today. So,
Delighted to have you here.
yeah, I'm a branding and boudoir photographer. Those are I do families and things like that as well, but I don't advertise it. But branding and boudoir is kind of my niche, so to speak.
Gives you meaning to B2B, huh?
Yeah, yes. And so, do you want me to talk about how I got into doing what I
Yeah, tell us a little bit of your
do,
journey.
or how would you like this?
A little bit of your journey, who you serve and why.
Okay, yeah. I can start with talking about boudoir photography, because that's kind of how I got back into doing what I do. Is about 11 years ago, I got out of a really bad marriage, a verbally an abusive marriage, and actually ended up homeless with my youngest son, who was 6 at the time. And I was looking for jobs, and found a job on Craigslist for a boudoir photographer. That looked, she had a studio in Carlsbad where I'm at, and she was looking to expand. And I thought, who the heck needs all these pictures in the lingerie? I mean, how cheesy is that? But I needed a job, so I applied. And to be able to get a job there, I had to go through the experience myself. And I was like, I don't know about this. But I ended up doing it, and it changed how I saw myself as a woman. It really brought back up confidence and self-love, which a lot of women lack of for numerous reasons. And I eventually ended up, she had 16 studios across the US at the time. And I ended up having the largest sales, we were all on commissions, of all of the photographers. And she's like, Anne, I don't know what you're doing, but keep on doing it. And so I realized what I did was I actually put down the camera and I connected, and I asked questions, and I dug deeper. So I didn't just take a picture. I actually more got into their soul, right? And that's how I got those great shots, because sometimes it was more therapy than it was photography. And sometimes, they were more in therapy, and sometimes I was more in therapy, but it was all a give and take sort of thing. So that's how that started. And I just fell in love with photographing women that way. And I did a lot of self-development on my journey, on myself, the law of attraction. And I followed Lisa Nichols. And The Secret became one of my big movies that I kept on watching over and over again. And Lisa Nichols was somebody that I resonated with, because she was a single mom. And eventually I found out that she was going to be in San Diego. And I went to the venue where she was speaking at, and I got the opportunity to stay afterwards and talk to her. And I was standing there. I was holding some of it was a networking event for women, and I was holding some of my promotional materials. And she's like, what do you got there? And then I started talking about what I was doing. She's like, oh, do you do branding as well? And I said, yeah. I wasn't quite at the time, but of course I was when she was asking.
Exactly.
And she's like, well, talk to my assistant and let's put something together. I'm due for some new branding pictures. So it took me about 9 times before I got her on the calendar, because she was traveling and all that. But eventually I found out from her, because on my way out, she was just getting into the car. And I said, well, Lisa, maybe you want to do a boudoir session. And she's like, nah. And I said, here, but just take this just in case. And I handed her like my little flyer for boudoir photography. Well, later on, after 9 times, I found out that pamphlet had been sitting on her nightstand for 4 months. And she was too afraid to call, but she wanted to do it. So eventually she came in and we did a boudoir session, and she still talks about it on stage, how it's changed how she saw herself. And I thought, okay, if the one of the biggest speakers of transformation can have a transformation in my studio, okay, something is happening here. And the law of attraction really had a full circle of attracting her into my studio, as I thought that she more or less saved my life because of this. I followed her, and then eventually we became good friends, and photographed her many times for branding. And unfortunately, she found love. Well, fortunate for her, but she moved to the Bahamas, so she's there.
So she hasn't been in your studio lately.
She hasn't been in my studio in a while. She got a whole new team in the Bahamas, yeah. So that's why I'm passionate about both. And I even do a session that I call From the Boardroom to the Bedroom.
Okay.
So, but for the branding part, it's I do a lot of entrepreneurs that are either startup or they're coming from corporate and they don't really know where to start.
Right.
And they know that they need pictures because in today's world, you really need to build. I actually have an ebook that I'm putting out called "Stop Hiding Behind Your Logo," because your face is now your logo, and you are your brand. Always doesn't matter. I mean, people are gonna. If I want to hire somebody, I'm snooping around on all their social media to see who they are.
Right. Right.
If they don't show up as the expert they say they are, I'm like, I don't know. Why should I hire them?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it really is, your personal image is really important of how you show up in the world as the expert. So you can stand out from your competitors in competition. So yeah. And by hearing all my clients' pain points, what they didn't know, where do I start? Where do I go? How do I do this? So I gave them so much knowledge that they're like, oh my gosh, I came here to get my pictures done, but you gave me a business in a box by the time I walked out of here. So now I have packaged all that into a branding course. So I'm teaching people how to set up a home or in-office studio so they can do their own social media and all their banners and all of that, and how to create their own posts so they stand out from their competitors, because it gets expensive when you start adding up marketing agencies, graphic designers, personal branding photographers, and not everybody has a lot of money when they start out to spend on all that. So
that's right.
Yeah. So that's the small version of what I'm up to.
Excellent. One of the things that you said that really resonated with me was when you put down the camera and you connected and you asked questions.
Yeah.
And isn't that the basis of forming an effective collaboration of any kind?
Yeah. It's the human connection, the human
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric, you're nodding also. Anything to add to that?
Well, no, I mean, that's just some of the basic principles of social media is, how many times are you on social media where somebody makes a connection with you and the first thing they do is they try to sell you something?
Oh, yeah. Don't do it, right?
Exactly. That's not the way to do it. You have to create a relationship. And the only way you can create a relationship is to understand who the other person is.
Right.
And then and not everybody that you're going to link up with on social media is a business opportunity.
Right. Very true.
And sometimes it might be not a business opportunity for you, but you learn enough about them that you say, well, I can't use that person, but somewhere down the road, something's going to click and say, I know somebody.
Yep. Yep. And isn't that, I don't know about you, but I find a lot of joy in that connecting others.
Yeah.
That just makes me happy to do that.
One thing about the whole pandemic, a lot of people think the pandemic was horrible because you weren't going to an office anymore and you didn't have that connection with people. But then there's some of us who said, yeah, so what? And we actually have more connections and a much broader global reach now to get to know people from different cultures and different
Absolutely.
walks of life, and throughout the globe. And the connections are even, I think, more valuable now.
Yeah.
I would agree. And yes, there were a lot of horrible things about the pandemic, but there were a lot of good things. And Eric, one of your areas obviously is technology. I think we saw probably at least a 10-year jump in technology over the last 2-3 years. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's accelerating at a ever wild pace. And I always joke that at least with the people that I tend to get involved with and coach, they struggle with a pre-web world, let alone Web 2.0, and now we're moving into Web 3.0.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah. And what are some of the more exciting or productive or beneficial collaborations that you've had? And how have they come about? I know you mentioned Lisa, the work with Lisa and all, but what's been the key for collaborations for you?
I'm all about win-win-win relationships.
Me too.
It has to be a win-win-win for everybody.
Yes.
So I love meeting people and networking, and I think if you come with a give mentality rather than what can you do for me, it's how can I support you, or what can I do for you, or, and I mean, I do give away a lot of photo sessions, and sometimes it's because I want to help that person, and I know when I was struggling how if somebody reached out and helped me just from their heart, they didn't want anything from me, they just helped me,
right.
And it's for me to be able to do that for other people now is but definitely leveraging the relationships that you have and having and nurturing your clients that you already have, because they already like you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because it's I can't even tell you how many email marketing messages I get in my inbox every day of like, I don't even know how they got my email and how I got on their email list. But the noise out there, it's so much of, and everybody during COVID had to reinvent themselves. So the competition is just so fierce out there right now. So you really have to hone in on your message. And I truly believe that you really have to be authentic and show vulnerability and be real. Because that's how you build your connections with people.
Yeah.
I feel like I can smell somebody that's not real from across the room now.
Yeah. I can relate to that. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Across the room or in the inbox, right?
Yeah, right. In the Zoom room, however.
Yeah. Eric?
You get that radar detector that smells the BS from a mile away.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. What's been one of the best collaborations you've had, Eric? And why was that one of the best?
Oh, gosh. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. That's a tough one.
I stumped him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the hard thing is, every collaboration has a different goal or purpose. And, because it's kind of like what I do, it's, I guess it would be like saying, okay, which one of your children is your favorite?
Yeah. So let's go for then, what do you look for in a collaboration? What are you looking for?
It starts with, I don't want to collaborate with people that don't share the same values that I have.
So important. So important.
you know, I was talking to an individual the other day who wants to become a coach. She's got hundreds of podcasts that she's done. She has a good pedigree, and she just doesn't know what direction to go in. And so she started following somebody who was a guru on high ticket coaching, I guess. And you know, they said, well, you should do X, Y, and Z. And so then she said, well, I need to go and get a website. And so she found somebody, and somehow she bought into the idea that if you're a high ticket coach, you need a high ticket website.
Mm.
However, creating a high ticket website and a low ticket website costs the same amount of money.
Yeah.
and she's spent, I think she said she spent over $13,000
Mm.
and still doesn't have a website.
Yeah.
And yeah, and she takes some of the blame on herself, but frankly, to me, it's like I could not do that to a person.
Right.
And
Right.
if I'm gonna charge them for something, I'm darn well sure that I'm going to walk the walk and talk the talk, and I'm going to deliver.
Going to give them value.
I'm going
Yes.
to give them value, and I'm going to give them more value than they necessarily thought they were going to get at the beginning.
Exactly.
That's always
Exactly.
the goal.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly disappointed with people that, you know, I'm trying to help. Anne knows that I have this person locally who I've been trying to mentor, and
Mhm.
cut him loose today. Had to say, sorry, it's clear that you don't share the values, you don't share the same ethics, and I can't risk my brand working with you.
Yeah.
You know, and as much as I would like the assistance, you know, in the areas that I wanted to work with this person on, it isn't worth it.
I think that is such a critical point to be able to know when this is not going to work. It is as important to know if it is going to work, if more important, because you don't want to waste time, energy, money, reputation with the wrong person or the wrong company. And it can be a difficult process to let those relationships go sometimes, but it's so important to step up and do so.
Well, and as Anne said, in these days, you are the brand.
You are the brand.
And very much when I deal with branding issues, I talk about all of the different things that can affect your brand, and I get into all sorts of areas like risk management, as an
Right.
example. And people don't necessarily understand. You know, too many people think that a logo and a brand are synonymous, and they're not.
No, they're not.
You know.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, again, you know, you are the brand, and it's your value system. And if you align with something that isn't in alignment with your values, it's going to tarnish your brand.
It is. It is indeed. And your reputation is everything.
Mm-hmm. There's also the old adage, you know, it takes, you know, years to build that reputation, but seconds to lose it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the brand, you think about when you post things, for example, on your Facebook, for those of you who are watching that don't have maybe their brand up yet, or you post a quote or something and you get maybe a few people liking, and then you post something of yourself when you feel and look great. Either there's a video or a picture, and all of a sudden, like, oh my God, you look amazing. Oh my God, and I mean, it's the same thing when you have a brand, right?
Right.
When you have a consistent brand and you show up as that person all the time, that's when you're gonna, blow up. If you compare to your other, I tell my clients, look at it as a dating site or a dating app. Okay, you get one chance
Yeah.
before somebody swipe left.
Yep.
And it's the same thing in your business.
Right. Yeah.
And if you look your images and your everything else look expired, including your website, it's more likely that your clients are going to feel, maybe this person is not, the one for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all, hey, that dating analogy works really, really well, because, when you are actually dating, you can't like just go and pop the question before you get to know the person. It ain't gonna work.
Right. It's not
You have to
gonna work.
develop the relationship first.
That's going to be one of those where they cut the ties early, right?
Ooh, who's this person?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Anne, have you had any of those experiences where you said, yeah, this collaboration is not working?
Yeah, I have. I'm apologizing for my dog. She's out playing by herself. So if you hear the growling in the background, it's my dog that's running around with a toy right now playing.
That's okay.
Um, yes, yeah, and I think now I've been in business long enough that I can nip that in the bud right away. And I feel, as a business owner now, you really have to take responsibility and have everything in writing when you do collaborations with people, and things can go one way or another, and then at least you have that original contract that you can always go back to and hold people accountable,
Yes.
including yourself, because maybe sometimes you still have a conversation, you can't, I don't remember saying that, but hey, if you have it all in the recording or on the contract where everybody signed,
Right.
yeah, so I think that's super important, that you really have to have that with whoever. It doesn't matter who you're collaborating with. If it's your best friend, you should still have it written down.
Right.
It's even more important to have that doc if it's your best friend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or
probably
your
so.
family member.
Probably so. Yeah, and sometimes, you meet somebody and you think, man, I just really want to do something with this person. I don't know what it's going to be, but I really want to do something with them.
Yeah.
And sometimes that works out and sometimes it doesn't.
Mhm.
Sometimes you get into it and it's like, okay, this isn't quite what I thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This relationship's not working. Any other thoughts that you have, Eric, on how collaborations have impacted your business? Because we know that you have been collaborating for years in various ways. What would you say the impact on your business has been?
I think the most important thing is it just opens up opportunities that you would not necessarily have found if it wasn't for those collaborations. It opens doors, it opens new avenues of opportunity. It's amazing the connections that, just because I have, and one of the interesting things is I know the importance of social media, but I'm just so busy. I don't personally have enough time to even devote to it. But with the limited stuff that I do on social media, it has led to some phenomenal connections and collaborations.
Right.
And some people have told me that it's just because of how I positioned myself on LinkedIn, and so it opens up opportunities. And I had a meeting the other day. Somebody who reached out to me. We started talking. It was clear that we had the similar mindset. We shared the same values. That person had a lot to bring to the table that I understood, but I didn't necessarily have those skills or abilities. And I brought to the table, again, a knowledge that he had, but didn't have the same skills and abilities. And now we're looking at how we can maybe collaborate in the future, because we know we can create a win-win for both of us.
I think what you just said is critically important. Looking for those people who have complementary skill sets or complementary experiences to what we have, so that we can, the two of us, make a whole, right? So that, and again, going back to what you said, Anne, when you said a win-win-win, that has been my motto forever as well. It needs to be a win for you, a win for me, and a win for our clients.
Yeah.
Or some folks say a win for the world. It needs to be bigger than us.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's also going to be things like, again, it's yeah, everybody has different skill sets, and we have different abilities to evaluate potential collaborations.
Right.
And so, if people know that I'm good at what I do in understanding technology or what have you, and they're not, they might just reach out to me to say, hey, can you help me find something to deal with this particular issue? And
Right.
so, it's an area where, people understand that they need technology in their business, but they don't know enough to be able to make the right decisions. And the last thing you want to do is make your decisions based on emotion.
Yes.
And, again, you often see people who are, they're getting their mentors out there, and the mentors will say, I use X, and they get excited, and they want to automatically use X.
Right.
But it's an
Because so and
emotional
so said it.
decision, because
Yeah.
just because that particular person is successful and has successfully implemented X
Right.
doesn't mean that it applies to your particular business.
True. Very true.
And so, so too many people, they put themselves in a box because they responded emotionally, and they didn't have the skill set to make the right evaluation, and they didn't create the collaboration with somebody who could help them at least collect the right information so that they can make the
Right.
most informed decision.
Yeah. And we know that most purchases are made on emotion and then justified by logic. So yeah, it goes
Which,
right
by the way,
along.
that's one of the things that makes me weird, I guess you could say, is, the rule of thumb is, most sales is 80% emotional, 20% logical.
Right.
I am very much 80% logical and 20% emotional.
And what is the name of one of your companies, Eric?
Cognologic effect. Because I use my cognitive abilities to come up with logical solutions that have positive
Exactly. You are walking the talk, sir,
effects.
or talking the walk, however that goes. Walking the walk, talking the talk.
Yep.
You are doing it. Yeah, absolutely. Um, awesome. This is great, folks. There's just so much value. Let me ask one last question to both of you. Where would your business be if you didn't have collaborations with it? Anne?
I will still be in the dark. I would. I feel. Um, I have invested a lot in my journey, in personal development, in business coaching, with photography coaches or mentors, because I wanted to get to the next level. And once I got to the next level, I'm like, oh, okay, this is great. Now let's go to the next level. And who do I need
Right.
to coach with to get there? So it takes a village, and as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, you really are always growing, and or as a human, I think we are always growing. And if I wouldn't have invested in myself as I did, I still and I see that a lot of photographers, particularly in my expertise, they are stuck because they're not business people. I say I was not one, and I said,
Hmm.
okay, if you're going to have a business, you got to stop saying that, because you have to learn how to run a business to have a business. And I had
Yeah.
to go through and learn that from somebody that knew how, since I didn't. And that's,
Right.
I think, is the key to success. You just have to find the people, your mentors, your coaches, that can take you to the next level, because it is there. It's difficult to do that yourself.
Yeah. What got you here won't get you there, right?
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
thing that's interesting is there's a lot of people who don't understand that you need to invest in yourself, number one. Number two, they think that just because a person is uber successful, that they know everything. because the most uber successful people I know, they still get coaches.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
just spend more.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
like one of the guys that's been one of my mentors, you know, he has a company that's a Inc. 500 company. The only difference in his coaching investment and mine is he spends, you know, 6 figures on his personal coaching.
Mhm.
You know, so
Right.
you're always saying, you know, what's next?
What's
How
next?
do I get
Yeah.
to that next level? And it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what level that you're at.
Right. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And you're looking for someone in that coaching realm who's not that far ahead of you, right?
Well, it
Someone that,
depends. Sometimes you could be it's more about, you know, you're not necessarily going to that coach for everything that they know. You're going to go
sure,
and say, I need somebody who's going to coach me on X.
X. Yeah,
And maybe you're just getting them for that one little thing.
that's true. That's true.
You know, when I do coaching, so, you know, I can do the whole enchilada from branding
Right.
on up, but more often than not, it's they think that whether they do or they don't, they think they know different things, and they only want me for that one thing.
For one thing.
You
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
obviously that one thing that's more common than anything right now for me is the technology component.
Technology. Yeah.
But even when
Exactly.
and then I still coach them in the other things, because it's when you got to have the technology, but then you have to, how do you create the sales funnel
Right.
using the technology? And then it's like, well, my sales page isn't converting. Well, okay, that has nothing to do with the technology at that point. That has to do with the messaging or the
Correct.
traffic or
Right.
other factors. So now you're looking at another aspect. And so you might start at this level and you're working down instead of starting at the ground up and working up.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. Very good. Well, I really want to express my appreciation to both of you for being here today. Eric, it's wonderful to have you as a guest co-host again, and love the panelists that you brought us, and with AnnPhotography.com, and I checked out your site, and you've got some beautiful work on there.
Thank you.
Absolutely,
Thank you for having me today,
absolutely
Regina.
gorgeous.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. If you know that you're the brand and you want to present your company the best way possible in everything you do, whether it's just social media images, or maybe you have an opportunity to be on the cover of a local magazine, or
right.
an ad in a convention publication, you want to make sure you have the right photos, and
Yeah.
no one's better than Ann.
Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
Anne, how do
Mhm.
you work with people who are on different parts of the globe? Um, so they fly to you,
Well,
you fly to them, what happens?
yeah. So I have a couple of different things that I have working on. The one thing is the branding course, which is you can find
Right?
that at brandingceo.com, and we'll working on getting that out in the next few weeks, hopefully, to depending on Eric's help. Eric and I are working together to get that off. But I'm very
Awesome.
excited. I've gotten a lot of good responses from networking group, particularly women networking groups that I'm in, that because everybody can use it. Even if
Right.
they go and hire a professional in between, this is just to teach you how because most people don't even know how to post. What's the best way? And I'm also bringing in
Right.
experts in marketing, SEO, and all kinds of other experts, stylists, hair and makeup artists, and yes, men do wear makeup in before they do pictures as well, just
Right.
to get you want to show up as the best version of yourself. And
Absolutely.
so you don't have to be where I'm at to take this course, and I will be there to help along the way to make sure that whoever goes through it will get great results.
Awesome. Fantastic. That's wonderful.
One thing
And yes,
before we part, I think Ann hasn't talked about is an exciting idea that she has.
Oh, my ageless.
Absolutely.
oh, let's
Well,
hear
you know what?
about
I should
that.
have. If I'm going to stand up 1 second. and take out my ageless magazine so you guys can get the full effect. So this is my ageless magazine that have women from 40 to 90. The cover girl here her name is Pink, calls herself Pink Lady. She's actually 90 years old. And she is the ultimate ageless woman, in my opinion. Her quote was, "It's not over until I say it's over." And so I started this to photograph women like boudoir style over age 40. And they also got to write a love letter to themselves. And I put together this magazine last year, and then had an online summit that over 100 women showed up, and we had female speakers, and it was a very big success. And now I have big plans for the Ageless brand to grow it into a lot of different things, from ageless vodka to ageless lingerie and master classes and all kinds of things. So so that's something that I'm working on, and it's going to be Ageless Lifestyle is the brand name. So yeah, very
excellent.
exciting.
Thank you, Eric, for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's like the mind of an entrepreneur, right? It's like always, remember everything is like always like a traffic jam in here.
Yep.
Well, I can tell you that not only does Anne have a great eye for taking a photo, but she's very, very creative with her ideas and the things that she has come up with, and so it's a very exciting collaboration.
Fantastic. I love it. I absolutely love it. Any last thoughts on collaboration, Anne? Any last thoughts you'd like to share with us? And also, at the same time, can you share your contact information? And I know you have your link on your picture here too.
I think for the collaborations is one thing for me. It's important that you really be able to have. I want to have collaborations with people that I can also go out and have a glass of wine with. That would be feeling like, I think it's important to have be able to be friends, or and also people that you want to collaborate or leverage with, go take their courses, or you can't just step into somebody and said, I want to collaborate with you. You got to kind of put in the work, and might have to pay some money out of your pocketbook just to learn from them first,
right,
before you can ask. So those would be the two things that I would say.
I like that. Support them first.
Yeah,
absolutely. 100% agree. And contact information.
Yeah, contact information. You can find annphotography.com. Is where most of my stuff live. For the branding course, it's brandingceo.com, and that's will launch in a few weeks.
Awesome. Very good. Thank you, Anne.
Thank
and
you.
Eric?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I'm excited to have gotten to know you a little bit today. So, Eric, your final thoughts about collaboration and contact information for folks to reach out to you.
Well, obviously, from the discussion today, I'm very big on collaborations and figuring out, how you can create win-win opportunities. That's the way you can ultimately grow and scale. And it's a lot easier to have good relationships to do that than trying to do it alone. Yes. As for getting a hold of me, right now, the best email is eric@cognilogicfx. It's a mashup of the words cognitive, logic, and FX instead of effects. And then
that's fast 5 times.
yeah. And then if you want to book a discovery call or a strategy call with me, you go to megafluence.net/strategy.
Love it. That's an easy one. megafluence.net/strategy. Awesome. Again, thank you both for being here. Really appreciate this opportunity to visit with both of you and to share some of your wisdom about collaborations and how they can impact our lives and our businesses, and how we can impact the lives of others through collaboration. So thank you.
Thank you.
And You are so welcome. And folks, we thank you for joining us today and hope you'll come back again soon for another collaboration conversation. Bye for now.